Us. Us, Rochelle. It looks like it's you and me. Oh no, Daniel. I knew Daniel would be here. You guys are the two most loyal. So there's at least three of us, or three now. My apologies for being a few minutes late. Oh, Doug, nice to see you, man. And Marco, how are you? Muz, Seide Kaikang, Karate Do. Us, thanks for coming along. Seide Kaikang. And Frederick, sent you a message before. Frederick got an order from Finland. But anyway, guys, thanks for coming. Apologies for being late. It just for some reason wouldn't connect to my hotspot on my phone. So today I want to look at using the head as a fifth limb. And that's not just for striking. Crikey, Shihan. Koshin Ryu Kempo. Crikey, Shihan. It's not just for headbutts. You know, even though we can look at headbutts as well, there's very specific ways you need to use headbutts, and definitely very specific ways you shouldn't. It's a great way to knock yourself out if you get it wrong. And sometimes the way it's taught is not very helpful. Oh, Jed. Nice to see you, man. I owe you a message too. I haven't had time. But anyway, I'm glad you come along. Koshin, you guys, that's Jed, my old buddy. We go back probably more than 30 years. But anyway, you know, sometimes the way headbutts are taught is very dangerous, very stupid, and it should be outlawed. And you can always tell the ones who haven't actually used a headbutt. Can everyone hear me okay? Us, Toddy. Good to see you, man. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Let me know that the sound is all right, because I just realized the plug wasn't right. So, loud and clear, beautiful. Thanks, Muz. All right, so, headbutts, yes, indeed. So there's headbutts. We have the 5 ranges: kick range, punch range. Third range is headbutt elbow range. And the reason I call it headbutt elbow range is because the range for headbutts and the range for a good elbow are pretty well spot on, exactly the same. If you can hit someone with an elbow, you can hit someone with a headbutt. If you can't hit someone with an elbow, you can't quite meet them with a headbutt. But of course, there's movement as well. So I wanted to look at a couple of things. First of all, let's just put aside a few misconceptions about headbutts. Leaping butt, rolling bite. Nick Hughes, we all know Nick Hughes, and Jed, my buddy there, is a good mate of Nick Hughes as well. So look, as a golden rule, and remember every rule is made to be broken, as a golden rule, you've got an invisible line at the eyebrows. And if you headbutt with the part of your head above that to the part of their head below that. So you don't want to go, one of the worst things you can do, us, Mike, welcome. One of the worst things you can do, which we're often taught, you only get taught it once. If you ever do it once, you'll never do it again. Us, Clarence, good to see you all the way from South Africa. If you hold the head and pull the head in, you've got to, like I actually even saw Nick did a video on this. If you hold the head and pull the head in, you've got a really good chance of knocking yourself out. And if you don't knock yourself out, you kill a few billion brain cells, and you pretty well knock yourself out. Should never grab the head and pull in. When we do, for example, we do tencho, we come in and up, out, and then we grab. What that simulates for the headbutt is you grab the shirt, the jacket, the gi, and you pull that suddenly. And what happens is when they get pulled from here, the head goes like that. See? And when you pull your head goes like that. So what you have is their head going there and your head going there. So you meet it in the correct way. So just as a simple rule for headbutts, and today is not necessarily just about headbutts. As a simple rule, you use the part of your head above the eye line against their head below the eye line. And it's always good to angle because you don't want to cut your head on their teeth. Chances are you knock their teeth out, but there's always a good chance that you'll end up getting infection from the teeth. You want to watch out for that as well. So headbutts coming from down, up are really good. Headbutts coming down from up like that are really good. And headbutts going forward as you force their head like that. So you get them in the lower part here is always a good thing. We have also using what I call the head as a fifth limb. So what does that mean? Well, I'm discovering it over and over as I get older. Certain things that I used to be able to do when I was a younger, stronger person, I just can't do anymore with the same degree of effectiveness because quite literally at my age now, I'm nowhere near as strong as, and anyone in their 60s is nowhere near as strong as they were in their 20s or 30s. So I have to take that into account. So certain techniques are really, really difficult unless I use my head. And you get the head in and you get, that's my son trying to call me. You get the head involved and it literally triples or quadruples the amount of strength that you can apply to the technique. Okay. One technique that comes to, and forgive me today too, normally I sit in Caesar, but lately my knees have been playing up and I can't even sit in Caesar right now. So I'm actually sitting cross-legged. So anyway, Seide Kang Karate Do organization. You'll have to let me know who that is. Us, Paul, George, thanks for coming along. Franklin, Costa Rica. You're the luckiest bloke in the world living in Costa Rica. Colstaff, namaste. Clarence, Mike. Okay, so we have, for example, my shoulder's shot, my body's fallen to bits. I've come to the conclusion that with all the joint pain I've got, the best thing I do is get a rope and hang for a little bit. It's the only thing that's going to be painless, I think. But anyway, that's a joke. I'm not about to do it. Jorge, good to see you, man. Thanks for coming along. So we have the move, and I'm in my no-gi stuff today because I'm doing some grappling later on with the young lads. But we have the movement out of Pinan 2. We come to the end, block, up, step through. And I love this. This is one of the most practical bunkai in Kata because the oldest street fighting trick in the world is fake a groin kick, and as they drop their hands, punch them in the nose. You hear like this, you go, yeah, boom. As they drop their hands, just jab them in the eyes, punch them in the nose, pop them in the throat, do anything you want when their heads are down. So this kata recognizes that. Boom, boom. That's the movement. It's not 1, 2, 3. Nothing. The timing of kata is quite often misleading. And if you don't work the bunkai, the timing that you teach in the dojo can be even worse. And when you put it to the count, itch, knee, some, that's a great way to get yourself knocked out. So in my dojo, what we tend to do is when we turn around, it's itch, like that. It has to be 1, 2. Because what you're doing is you're blocking the groin kick and your hand's coming straight up like that. So I'm there, boom, boom. This hand is always up, bang, bang. So you've got to cover the fact that the son of a gun is sneaky. The art of war says the art of the war is deception. And deception is too nice a word. If I translated the art of war, I would have said the art of war is sneakiness. Because people are sneaky. You have to be sneaky. There's no way you're going to pull off anything unless you're a little bit sneaky. Well, I'm finding that as I get older. Okay, so pin and 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. And you practice that. 1, 2. 1, 2. You block. Okay? You block the left kick with the left hand. 1, 2. So they kick left, punch left. So what you're doing is you're there to boom, boom. Now, if I go into block, lock, blow, throw, a block is a lock, is a blow is a throw, and you may have heard of the karate nerd. What's his Jesse Enkamp. Jesse, thank you. Jesse quoted me I saw a video where he quoted me on the block, lock, blow, throw. It was very kind of him to do that. I hope next time he mentions my name when he mentions the quote. But anyway, that's life. But I appreciate it. A block is a lock, is a blow, is a throw. And that's my concept of turning everything into bunkai into a fluid concept. 1, 2. Now I've gone 1, 2, the block. I need to turn it into a lock. Now, if you could imagine his arms there, and I'm trying to do the lock, and at my age, it's not working. So that's where I literally headbutt my own hand. Now I can finish that lock. And I call this sticky tape. As you know, the more connection you can create with your body, the more control you can create with the situation. So if I have their arm with my arm, it's 50-50. If I have their arm with my arm and my head, now I have my spinal chain engaged, and it's now probably 70-30. Now when I connect my head, connect my arm, also protects me, and now I collapse their arm from behind and lock it in, I can use that head as a fifth limb. That's what I mean by a fifth limb. By a fifth limb, what I mean is the concept of sticky tape and connection. Yes, good on you, Jorge. You guys are lucky. I've heard how beautiful Costa Rica is. Didn't they kind of, say that it's the most livable place in the world? Somewhere along the line, I heard that for all kinds of reasons. But anyway, this is the concept of the fifth limb. Now, what I call sticky tape, and remember, I just moved house a few months ago, so I used up a lot of sticky tape. And what I found is some boxes that I'd underestimated the weight and so on, and I used one piece of sticky tape, and by the time I took it off the truck, the box had collapsed. So I put 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I put more and more sticky tape on, and the more sticky tape I put on, the more difficult it was to open the box. Well, it's the same with fighting. If you're going to range 4 and you have stand-up contact, or even range 5 on the ground contact, and if you're not shutting things down by optimizing the amount of your body that is sticky taped to their body, then you're in trouble. And I don't have a training partner today, but I do have a dummy that I'm going to show you a couple of things where you can use the head as a fifth limb. Oh, it's Christopher. Nice to see you, man. Thanks for coming along. Hope all's well in New York. Okay, so let's just briefly, I'm going to spin this around now and put it on the punching bag, because I want to use the punching, and this is a great way to train when you're by yourself if you want to work on some transitions. So I can be here. I'm in range 5. Maybe I'll turn this belt around. I might be able to use it. I'm not saying I can. We use this to practice our throws, but I'm not doing a throw. I'm doing a single leg. But we're doing the single leg entry off the thigh kick. So I'm coming in. He throws the punch. I fade away, thigh kick, and I pull it straight in. Now, let me pull this out. It locks in position. Here's a perfect example of where you use the head as a fifth limb. Now, depending on who you're working with, and depending, is it a red light, a green light, orange light situation, it may be that I want to put my head on the chest, okay? But if it's a red light situation and the son of a gun needs to be taught a lesson, please God, it's not my job, it's yours, but if I'm the instrument, thank you. 1, 2, that can be a headbutt, but it also creates the momentum and the penetration you need for the single leg, okay? And the single leg, the bag's a little too big for the single leg practice, but let's say this is around his single leg. Now I'm pulling the leg down and pushing the head up. So a single leg where I'm just using my arms is not a single leg. It won't work. It's guaranteed it won't work. If you try to, unless the guy is drunk and you don't know what he's doing, if you just pull his leg up and try to break his balance like that, you're going to get nowhere fast. You waste a lot of energy. But you have to employ the hiki oshi. Oshikonde hiku. Oshikonde hiku means to push and pull. It's a Japanese term. Hiki osh. So I'm going to push my head and pull the leg now. And now all of a sudden you have the push-pull going on. And that head becomes the fifth limb. Okay? So that is the first example where you can actually use your head as a fifth limb. Because my hands are tied up to take control of the leg. And there. I can do it off the other side so you can see what it looks like from the back. One. And I headbutt there. And I take the leg here. So I want to push in with my head. And you see I have nothing else touching the bag except my head. If I get the spinal chain right, you can actually start to get a lot of power in just with that. So you can imagine that pressure pushing on their chest. You're going to drive in. One, drive in like that. You can even use your shoulder, but the shoulder, that would only really be useful if you're trying to shoulder charge them like that. You're not trying to do that here. What you're doing, the arm would actually go to the back of the leg here. There. Pull the leg as you push the head. So that's the first example that comes to mind to you. I'll sit in Seizo, see if I can. For the head as a fifth limb. If you've got any input, comments, questions, complaints, of course, you're more than welcome at all the time. So when you must have come in late, Mike. We talked about that earlier, but it's a good point. That's the goju. You go use hard against soft, soft against hard. So in my experience, I only ever hit one guy in the face with a fist. The rest of the time it was palm heels or very, very calculated slaps. The rest of the time I'm hitting the body with the fist, which is exactly what Mike's saying there. The goju concept, the jugo, goju, and goju, I understand, Mike, it'd be interesting. You'd be able to tell me if I'm wrong. But the name goju was taken from, I think it might have even been a portion of the Bubishi where they talk about that, hard against soft, soft against hard. But anyway, that's a good point. You only use, yeah, there's a few headbutts in Kyokushin Kata, but probably not as many. And I would say, and with all due respect to everyone in Goju and Kyokushin, I would say that a lot of people who do the kata don't realize that what they're doing is a headbutt or can be applied as a headbutt. That's a fair point. And hear that thudding in the back. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it, but they're driving deep pylons into the development next door. Kempo Haku, there he goes, the 8. Kempo Haku, the 8 laws of the fist. Well, there you go. That's very interesting. Ho Goju Donto, there you go. Very interesting. I'll look that up. I'll look the kanji up for that, Jed, too. But anyway, Mike, thank you for that. Yes. Headbutts are good, but using the head as a fifth limb is great. And that movement out of Pinan 2, block down, block up, and to get the penetration when your arms aren't enough against a strong person by connecting your head. Okay. Now I use that a lot when I grapple. As I get older, when I grapple, and I'm usually grappling guys around 30 years younger than myself, so I'm not able to match them in strength. I have to beat them with sneakiness. But anyway, I find quite often there's some really, really good ways to use the head there. And I do have my trusty little I'm going to see if I can line that up and show you what I mean. So I don't have a grappling dummy, but I do have a grappling kick. And if you could imagine, first of all, that this is a body and I'm capturing here and I'm coming in and I'm using this shoulder pressure. Now his arm is here, okay? His arm is here. I want to switch and capture his shoulder. Now and if you can imagine, his arm is here. Whilst it's here, quite often I'll go to get the arm. See, the arm's here now, that's his arm, and I'm pushing it down. But if he's exceptionally strong or even averagely strong, if he can move his hips and reshape so that he can, if you can imagine, this is him lying on the ground and someone is trying to arm bar me like this. The further they can abduct the arm from the shoulder, the weaker it gets. So what I tend to do there is I'll use my hips to create a movement where I'll bring my arm back into my side, okay? And generally, if I can create this connection, once again, I sticky tape my arm to my body. If I can create that connection, it's much harder for them to move the arm away, unless they combine the arms and the head. So that's where, in this position now, if I'm in this position here, I'm going to capture their arm and I want to take their arm down there. So I'm getting it into ude garami in Japanese, ude garami. Better I go back a bit. But I find from my experience that sometimes I'm not strong enough anymore against strong, young, trained athletes. So right there, it's bang. My head goes on the hand and I push down. Now, it's not just a fifth limb. It's actually, it engages the entire spinal chain. And that's what's beautiful about it. I don't want to be like this with my head. I want to bite in, tuck my chin in, and use my entire spinal chain to push my hand. So my hand is holding his arm, if you can imagine. And I want to abduct it from his body. If he's strong, it's my arm versus his. I get my head on it. It's just an easy matter of pushing down. Okay? Lock it in, push it down. That works very well. Another sneaky one, if you grapple, you can try this. You might be surprised how effective it is, or you might already know it, and I'm just talking to myself here. But sometimes when the arm goes this way, so from this position, let me turn around here so you can see, the arm essentially is in three planes. One, the arm is down. Two, the arm is straight. And three, the arm is up. Now, when it goes down, most people, especially people who've trained because they strengthen the supporting structure of the shoulder, and over time they collect a few injuries and so on. So when the arm goes down here, generally the shoulder will start to come up. That indicates that the shoulder's a bit tight, okay? This one here is not so much. They don't want the shoulder to come up. They want the shoulder to stay down, then elevate the arm instead. But this gyaku udegarami, this they call it the kimura, gyaku udegarami, they try to elevate like this. Now, quite often, if their shoulder is tight, they'll tap very quickly. Well, here's a nice little technique you might like to try, which I use with tremendous success. Arm, I get under, I have the arm in this position, and maybe I'm not strong enough to finish. So what I do is I literally put my head on the point of the shoulder. There. I come up, point of the shoulder, And quite often they'll tap just from that. If I'm pressing the hand down and the shoulder down, there is no freedom of movement. And that move alone, pressing the head onto the shoulder, can quite often get a tap, especially if you want to tripod up and put even more pressure on the head like that. Okay, now that tripod leads me into another technique, which is very good, which when I have shoulder pressure under the jaw, this is a very common position you'll see when you're on somebody's side. Yoko shihogatame or yokogatame. When I'm on the side here, side control, often you'll have this kind of position where I push my shoulder into his jaw. Now here's another sneaky little old man sneak is instead of just putting my shoulder on the jaw and driving pressure down into my hand, what I'll do is I'll move my shoulder to the chest, try to get it down to the chest, then drop it into the chest, and then drive the shoulder pressure into the jaw that way. Now, if you grapple, if you enjoy it, if you use the cross-face shoulder pressure, it works a dream. Against people who aren't used to the pressure, they'll tap 9 times out of 10 simply because they're just not used to the pressure. But if they get used to the pressure, they won't tap. There's no way they'll tap just from the pain compliance. But if you drop your shoulder down here and drive it into the chest and then put all the weight, see my legs are up in a tripod, then I collapse the top leg and drive that shoulder upwards like that. That's extremely effective as well. And if you've ever done cross chokes or Ezekiel's, what's called, so I'm here, I'm in this top position, the mount position, and I might be coming in here with the choke. Quite often the hand will go here, I'll come around, cross face, but I need balance. Here's the thing about a mount. If I have 2 points of contact, I'm vulnerable. They can bridge me off, they can throw me, all kinds of things. The best way to stabilize the mount is to go 4 points. 1, 2, and my 2 knees. So that's much more stable than this. The next best thing is 3 points. See that? 2 knees and a hand. So I can do that if I'm here or mounting with someone. I'll often move over here, 3 point, dig my hand in for the cross choke, get the grip, and then slide this one around, cross face. In no-gi, I'll get under the shoulder like that too, by the way. Cross face, but now I'm vulnerable because I only have 2 points of contact. So what you do there is use your head as a 5th limb. Now you can apply the cross, the choke, and if they try to buck you off, you have the head for stability. Okay, that's a really, really strong technique as well. There's one more really useful way to use the head as a 5th limb on the ground. And keep this in mind, we're talking about the sport of grappling here. We're not talking about real fighting situations. Real fighting situations, you want to get off the ground as fast as you can. The whole notion that 90% of the fights end up on the ground is not true. Well, at least in my experience. I haven't had a lot of fights, but I can tell you now, the only one that ever ended on the ground was when I couldn't find my work shoes and I wore slippery leather shoes to work and I slipped. No one, it's not like anyone deliberately took me down. It's a very culturally based thing, but the notion that 90% of fights end up on the ground is just absolutely not true. You've only got to look at UFC. UFC is as close as you can get in a sporting environment with realistic rules. And it used to be when guys didn't know